Hey everybody, welcome to episode 147 of WP Roundtable. My name is Kyle Maurer. I'm doing WordPress stuff for a company called Easy Digital Downloads here in a little place called Jackson, Michigan. Today I've got a really awesome guest that I've been looking forward to talking with for a long time. His name's Mario Peshev, coming to us all the way from Sofia, Bulgaria. And Mario is the CEO of DevriX, a WordPress development agency. Thanks for joining me today, Mario.
Hey there, it's a pleasure, and thanks for the invitation. It's really nice chatting with you, and looking forward to jump into a longer conversation over the next hour or so.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. There's a lot that we can talk about because you've been involved in a lot of aspects of WordPress, quite a variety of things. Just from what I know, you've been involved in WordPress core, organizing WordPress events, obviously running an agency, a team, managing big projects, developing plugins, reviewing themes for the .org repository, and I'm sure more besides that that I don't even know about. So you're really involved.
Yeah, well, if something doesn't really work out with these digital downloads, I think that a PR job with DevriX is going to be your next best spot, I think that you're doing pretty great, so yeah, definitely dig this. Yeah.
PR. Funny. That's funny. Okay, well, cool. And you and I met a couple of years ago in person when you came to the U.S. for an event. It's probably WordCamp US, I'd imagine.
Yeah, either US or San Francisco. Not sure which of the two was. Probably US that particular year. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, anyway, we're going to talk a lot about all of those things, dive into it. But before we do, I'd like to share our quick picks of the week. This is just anything that you or I have found interesting in recent times, blog articles or new plugins or tasty new beer. And the latest thing that I thought was, I don't know, worth sharing, didn't have anything to do with WordPress other than being published on a WordPress blog. But somebody in my team Slack chat shared a link to an article just called Being Poor. And it was an interesting article that went around. A lot of people shared it. It was published in, I don't know, some periodical, but it was written on someone's blog. The author's name was John Scalzi. And the title of the post was called Being Poor. And it was just a pretty thorough look at what it is like to live in a first world country like ours and to be kind of at the bottom of the economic scale. And it's something for a lot of us have a lot of blessings that maybe we don't take advantage, take for granted all too often. I don't think we can read stories like this too often. So I recommend everybody get a little perspective, remind yourself of the many blessings you have, and read stuff like this often.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mario, do you have anything to share today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be definitely interested in reading your article, to be honest. It's, regardless of whether you've read something like this or not, a good reminder every now and then, every couple of months or so, can definitely make you live, a better, healthier life, just appreciating everything you've got more often. So that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to reading. I'm going to probably kind of touch on the professional topic, and one of the probably things that was of interest to me was the recent licensing issue with React.js, and the fact that it's been on the interwebs for the past several weeks, and eventually Facebook said, well, we are not going to remove the patents file from the licensing. So essentially, you're either going to switch to something else or kind of live with it. And yeah, I think that, React being one of the most popular JavaScript front-end libraries, and not only front-end, I'd say, kind of being embedded in a lot of different applications and widely used by Automatic. It's interesting that there are now certain violations, and it isn't really well adopted by Apache's software licensing, and it isn't really compatible, and a lot of different organizations are considering switching back from React right now. We've also implemented it in some projects, and for some of them we've spent over 1,000 hours just implementing, pretty much everything there. So a possible switch, even for us, is going to be really tough. I can't even imagine larger organizations building products that may spend another 20,000 hours or so just rebuilding something built on React. for licensing issues. So I think that's interesting. For all I know, Gutenberg is using React, and also Calypso is using React, and WordPress.com is using heavily React. So that's an interesting thing, both on the end of WordPress as the WordPress.org platform and WordPress.com as in everything that Automatic handles.
Wow. Yeah. That's goodness. That is a really fascinating topic. And I had heard that there were some recent developments with the with Facebook's licensing. They made it a response, I guess. There was a request to maybe change the licensing, and they responded. And what did they say?
Well, essentially, they said that they are subject to recent, well, to frequent legislations and different lawsuits and everything on that spectrum of things. And they said that this is pretty much their way out of escaping all sort of different lawsuits. So they say this is only for the sake of our protection. We don't want to be liable for some code that someone else contributed to React and that Facebook is using, and then we being sued for that reason, right? It's a complicated matter. I'm not a lawyer, but it kind of sounds weird because React isn't really the only open source project out there, and you don't hear of many lawsuits happening due to violation of whatever property there is or copyright, right? Because that's kind of what open source is for. So yeah, it sounds. I kind of understand where they're coming from, but I'm pretty sure that there was a better way to handle that situation, or just not being that just deal with it kind of attitude. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of tough, and that does definitely make things complicated for the WordPress space.
Absolutely. And also, WordPress is looking, kind of the core team is looking for a library to, the new JavaScript library, so to speak. So React was kind of the obvious choice. Vue.js was kind of the second obvious choice. So right now, I think that things may kind of shift to a different direction or not, or at least Automatic seems to be fairly comfortable using React for their own projects. But again, it's different when it comes to the open source WordPress project, So that's going to be very interesting, and it's also going to kind of affect the preferable library, so to speak, for a lot of plugin developers, tool developers, WordPress theme framework developers, and so on. So it's definitely interesting. It's pulling a lot of different triggers right now.
It really is. I mean, it's not. There's a lot to the situation, and not all of it has is brand new. WordPress has been through some of these kinds of things before a little bit, but when you put it all together, this is a little bit uncharted territory and has pretty significant consequences. WordPress is approaching a crossroads here, where making a choice to include a library like that with potentially a misalignment of values. Is not something to be understated. Well, that's a good topic. Thanks for bringing that up, Mario. And maybe we'll circle back around to that a little bit later. But right now, I'd like to dive in a little bit to who Mario is and talk a little about your background. All right?
Yep, sure. So I live in Sofia, Bulgaria. That's a country in Eastern Europe. My background is in software engineering. Essentially, I've been dealing with programming for the past probably 18 years or so, and professionally for the past 15 years. This is kind of my earliest passion from school days, so to speak. Most of us have been through just being kids and having access to a computer and having access to video games and computer games and everything like that, and just say, hey, I want to be a programmer at some point of time, right? So that's kind of a common path, so to speak. So that was kind of my initial idea, my initial goal. Additionally, I had access to kind of different software applications, so to speak. So I was really reluctant to work on one specific thing. I really wanted to kind of work on diverse activities, and that kind of ignited my passion for programming since the early days. Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, I think that my first website was for Pokemon back in probably 1999.
Wow.
So this was kind of the the reason I that I was kind of building a catalog for different Pokemons, and at the same time kind of trying to study how to place images and how to align them in different fonts and how to link cross different pages. There was a website. I'm not even sure whether it's. I think it was Dave's site, HTML station or something like that. Davesite.com/webstation. Yeah, I think it's still live. And that was kind of the main place I was actually learning HTML from. And yeah, I mean, things one thing led to another. At some point at school, I was kind of building my course projects, especially with subjects like science and physics and so forth. I really hated formulas. They were just boring. I didn't want to remember them, so I kind of dived into let's build an application for everything and just then connect applications together and build one whole project with different programs. So yeah, I mean, I kind of enrolled in a pretty good technical school here, one of the probably top 3 in the country, and yeah, I just had access to a community of different geeks, people who are really passionate about programming and computer science and even hardware and networks. We had access to Cisco's certification program since, I don't know, 8th grade or something. So this was pretty great, and yeah, that's kind of how it started. And yeah, over the years, I've dealt with different programming jobs, different other types of jobs in the IT industry. At some point of time, I switched to full-time freelancing, and at the end of 2010, I've started DevriX. Now we're about a team of 30 or so, distributed across several different countries. And yeah, nowadays, on a day-to-day, I'm dealing with different activities. For the most part, some of them are related to just management, to a lot of marketing activities, part of business development and sales, product planning, and so on. And yeah, I mean, probably a year ago, I would have said that this is kind of something new to me. And when I'm rewinding back the tape, I kind of see some patterns back from the early days for different types of jobs and different activities that kind of are quite similar to what I'm doing now on a daily basis. For example, again, probably 18 years ago or 16 years ago, I was participating as a translator for several different tech websites, writing articles, writing product reviews, and so on. So kind of participating with active writing now isn't really that recent of a passion of mine, so to speak. I also used to work for marketing companies, like digital studios or internet web firms, so to speak, the ones that have news websites and restaurant websites and food websites and catalogs and so on. So essentially everything I do is kind of, I would say, predetermined to some extent based on my experience over the years. I just hadn't recognized it as such back then. And now I'm just putting the different pieces of the puzzle and kind of figuring out how something back like 20 years ago or so reflected what I do now on a daily basis.
Okay, so it sounds like the way you describe it that, I mean, you say that where you ended up is logical progression based on the experiences that you've had and the events that that you experienced. Do you look back and feel like you were reacting to opportunities that came along, and or were there points where you made very deliberate choices and said, you know what, this trajectory that I'm on isn't exactly where I want to go, so I'm going to purposefully jump or integrate myself here or study this other thing? Were you purpose driven at any point, or taking the opportunities that fortunately came your way?
That's a good point. I'd say it's partially 50-50 probably. I was very passionate about that back in my high school days, and I was constantly trying to learn and improve myself and get better and work on different projects and so on. So, like, I've tried to do websites for friends or family members and so on, and just kind of try to progress myself. I've been trying to make my life easier through building applications for myself. I was very persistent and very curious. Again, back at high school, building different course projects and so on. So kind of at some point when it was the right time to apply for a programming job, I already had a portfolio that I've been building for 3 years now or so. I already had it wasn't GitHub back then. It was some probably Subversion repository or something. But I already had version controlled repository with a lot of my work. And again, it was also web, it was desktop, it was database systems, and so on. Also, there was a training course that I've started here. It was a professional program that lasted for about 9 days, or 9 months or 10 months, and it was free. And I've enrolled for this one. And at some point, there was kind of an application process for becoming a trainer or an assistant trainer or something like that. And since it was a decent job back then, that was still at high school. Obviously, I have applied, and kind of our trainers have also recommended me to the management. And there was an application process. Everyone had to give a different talk and present a presentation, create PowerPoint slides, and so on. So it just pretty much worked out. Like the final round, we were only 4 people. We had to do 2 different training courses, one head trainer and an assistant. So initially, I was about to be the assistant of the second course, like the 4th person in a row. After the presentation, I became the main trainer of the first group, and that's pretty much how it all started. It was pretty intense. I really didn't know a lot back then, and the program was it was very intensive. It required reading and doing exercises all day long, all night long, over the weekends, and so on, in order to kind of get up to speed with everything that I had to do. There was a lot to learn, a lot to study, a lot to understand, and I would say that the company was a startup that was trying to innovate in a space that wasn't really well defined. There weren't a lot of different processes to make things the right way, so they expected everyone to work really, really hard in order to make it happen. And yeah, it was a lot of hustle, and it was a lot of hard work in order to kind of make it work. So yeah, I'd say that it's a combination of kind of being lucky and landing different opportunities, and working in the same direction simply because it was something of real interest to me, like something that I was kind of passionate about doing. Like I just enjoyed doing that. It wasn't really something that was, well, I love doing that in my free time. Let me put it this way.
Well, that's a blessing when you can turn something like that you find fulfilling and enjoyable into your day-to-day profession, and you can pursue it completely and master it. That's something that's really cool. You said that a few years back you started freelancing, and then that led to you starting an agency, DevriX.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the freelancing period. You left employment to go solo for the first time. What was that like?
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. So I've been freelancing ever since I kind of built the first websites for my friends and family a long time ago, but it wasn't really something that I pursued a lot. Right. I mean, I was available for inquiries, but I didn't really have that much of an experience. I was young. I wasn't kind of the best, freelance expert who was able to do everything. And to be completely honest, I think that PHP showed up. I don't recall when, probably 1990 something. I don't know, but like dynamic programming wasn't even that popular back then. It was all about, having Dreamweaver and kind of designing your pages. It was almost like the modern, the old school version of visual editors, right?
Yeah.
Get templates and change everything in Dreamweaver. So it was definitely weird. There was no responsive design. Your biggest issue was kind of Internet Explorer 5 or Netscape, which was still available back then. So yeah, it was simply different. But having said that, like I was available, I was doing some projects every now and then, but it wasn't really something I was doing like purposefully, like trying to make a living out of it. So with that in mind, I was working a job, and it wasn't really going well, in a way that the founders couldn't figure out what to kind of how to approach business development. So they were fighting a lot for the past 6 months when I was working there, and they we didn't really have a lot of work. So while I was at the office, I was kind of doing full-time freelancing. Not like something that's illegal, something that my management didn't know about. It was like we were asking about new projects or something daily. We spent about 2 months rebuilding all internal systems and optimizing process and this and that and this and that. And at some point of time, there simply was no work. Well, there was 2 hours a day or so, but for the remaining amount of time, there simply wasn't work. And one could have easily foreseen the fact that things are going to end very soon. So it was all a matter of time. So at that point of time, like while I was sitting at the office, I was just working on some freelance projects. Like first, I've started with course lab course projects and something like that. Then just working on freelance gigs. And at that point, I kind of got into that habit of kind of waking up, bidding for projects, trying to negotiate some leads, trying to kind of land some projects, try to time them, this and that and this and that and this and that. And things at work were getting really ugly. For example, our management said that we are going to start working with Joomla, and at that point of time, I simply decided to quit.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a dirty word. Essentially, we had an initial agreement. I said that I'm going to do a lot of stuff in programming, but I'm not going to do Joomla. And they said we are switching to Joomla, and they said that's it. That was pretty much the final straw.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, anyway, so it kind of ended up as having no job whatsoever. But I already had a passion for working for myself. Simply because I was pretty tired from everything that I was doing at work, mainly having to go to work and commuting for 3 hours a day without having any job to do. We were also working with international clients, which means that my customers were, again, in the US, we were in Europe. And our clients were waking up at kind of 5 p.m. our time, and we were ending up our work shift at 6 p.m. So we barely had a single working hour where we can meet with our customers. It didn't make any sense. I was totally okay working evening shifts and just being able to work with our customers, but our management said, no, that's not going to happen. You just have to be at the office from 9 to 6. That's pretty much it. So, all of that was kind of adding up to the extent where I said, okay, I'm not effective in the morning. I work night hours. Like, for example, right now it's past midnight and I feel fairly well. I really feel like, I can barely wake up at 9 a.m. Like this is barely happening anytime. so it just wasn't really something that was working out for me. So I said, okay, let's do it. The other thing is that this happened in 2008, right when the recession started, right? It was tough for everyone. It was tough, for the entire planet, I would say. And that was actually one of the reasons why our company haven't succeeded back then, because they were losing a lot of governmental business and different types of projects that were, easygoing with, partnerships and some funded money and this and that. So things are simply not, were simply not going out. And what I said was the following: okay, let's try to kind of work on this thing, and let's try to spend a year on freelancing right when the financial recession has started. If I manage to survive that, until the next big recession, there's nothing, more challenging that's going to happen on a kind of on a global economical level, right?
Mm.
I mean, if you can make it work during the toughest financial and economical and political times, then things are probably going to get easier after that. So with that in mind, I've started. I wouldn't say that things were working brilliantly. I mean, obviously they were tough. A lot of time spent on pitching, negotiations, kind of begging for projects and this and that. But it worked out. It worked out. I hired Stanko, who's now my partner, and we've hired one more guy. We got some freelancers working on and so on, and that's kind of how the company has started as well. And yeah, I mean, after the recession, things have gotten a bit easier. And at some point of time, we managed to generate enough kind of recurring revenues so that essentially we can stay afloat and keep growing, kind of steadily again afterwards. So that's kind of how I've started with freelancing. Probably the most important lesson that I've learned back then was that my professional skills didn't really matter a lot. Simply because the vast majority of the freelancing work was actually related to sales and project management and marketing and branding and all the other things that I actually had to leverage later on a company scale. But that's something that I teach all the freelancers that I work with right now. Again, your kind of price point and the way you price yourself and everything depends on the weakest half of both main components. One of the components being your professional skills, the other one being your sales, marketing, lead generation, negotiations, handling scope creep, descent. So the weaker part is going to determine your, say, hourly rate or fixed fee rate. So the more you're kind of trying to balance them and grow them steadily together, the better you're going to be able to price yourself and work on more interesting projects, more challenging projects, and so on. If you're a great kind of expert in the field, but you can't sell yourself, again, you're not going to be able to land projects. If you can sell some outstanding projects and you want to implement them yourself, not to resell them or offload them, and you suck at your professional skills, again, you're going to stay, at the very bottom of the kind of professional, hierarchy. So maintaining both of them simultaneously is what really differentiates a great consultant or freelancer or expert, whoever, from someone who has just started and is still trying to make a good living out of this.
Wow. Yeah, those are some really great lessons to relate. And thanks for sharing those.
Yep.
During this time, were you utilizing WordPress exclusively?
No, not really. My programming background, again, it was in different programming languages, and when I started, WordPress wasn't even there. I've started with WordPress back in, I think, 2005 or 2006. The internet agency that I was working for was building a new blogging platform. So we simply had to do kind of a background. Well, I'm going to take it a step back. So the company I was working for, again, it was a network of different websites, like a news website, local search engine, food ordering website, a large chain of similar websites. And they wanted to start their hosted version. It was actually called blog.bg, like BG stands for Bulgaria. And this was kind of the blogging network that they were kind of launching at some point of time. And all of us that were related to the project had to do some, again, competitor research, so to speak, and test driving different platforms such as WordPress, Joomla. I'm not sure if it wasn't called Mambo back then. Like E107 being a CMS/blogging platform, LiveJournal, and some of the other projects back then that were available for blogging. So we had to actively start using these and kind of see what works and what not. We had to start kind of researching their extension infrastructures or how to create add-ons, modules, components, and so on. So that was kind of our first experience with that. When I started freelancing, we got on a lot of different projects, from Python to Java to plain PHP to probably some other things that we have coded back then. Some of our clients also used WordPress. We had to do stuff that wasn't really possible with APIs back then, like, again, creating custom post types, fetching different things, implementing a custom version of admin Ajax or so on. But again, this wasn't really a focus. And probably 2 years later, I've co-started a startup with a previous customer of mine, and we were building theme frameworks. And that's where I really had to spend kind of my full attention and time on WordPress, also working with other WordPress engineers and really study the internals of WordPress as a platform. So having said that, probably for the past 7 years, we've been exclusively doing WordPress. Previously, we have also used that in 2008 for some customers. And the first time that I actually had played with the platform was back in 2005 or 6.
Okay. So at this point, WordPress is a big part of what you do. It's the primary focus for your development agency that you as you advertise on your website. Are you doing anything that isn't WordPress right now?
No, not as a separate project. We do have different initiatives within some of our ongoing projects that are custom PHP or Python or some JavaScript APIs. For example, right now we're discussing a project that would require some Python for data management and probably some machine learning. Additionally, it will likely require some PostgreSQL, again, for dealing with some aggregated data. It's kind of data and analytics, kind of a pro version of this for a custom project. We do have a couple of different projects that do integrate Python-based applications. We do have an ERP or a CRM that we're integrating with Java. So we do have some Java modules that are also connecting with our WordPress installations and exchanging data through SOAP. So again, we have different projects with different programming languages incorporated in them, but nowadays we only take on core projects that are WordPress, regardless of whether they're 100% WordPress or also interact with different platforms or programming languages.
What are some of the customers like that come to DevriX, and how do they hear about DevriX, and why are they coming to you? Like what sort of organizations are these?
Right, that's a great question. We do have different, so our kind of, well, not sales pitch, but our target market is small and medium enterprises and fast-paced startups. So most of the companies we're working with generate between 5 million and 100 million in revenue. We do have some enterprises that generate over 60 billion in revenue. So they come for specific types of projects, so to speak. But I would say that our kind of sweet spot is organizations between, say, 20 and 200 people. Again, between $5 and $100 million, so maybe $500 million or so. But kind of this is the sweet spot. What we do for them is usually ongoing development. Our main service that we offer, probably maybe about 100% of our customers are actually right now on ongoing retainers. So we sign up a certain set of hours on a monthly basis, and we do have certain initiatives. We do have some roadmap of activities that we work on in the long run. In the meantime, we deal with technical debt. We deal with maintenance, coming up with ideas and kind of best practices for implementing different solutions. We try to explore different ways to monetize the product, different ways to automate the application, different ways to kind of save time and earn more money. So this is kind of our sweet spot. Like we don't simply implement tasks. We try to analyze the business and based on that say, okay, what could we do so that our clients, customers are happier and they get access easily to what they have, and our clients, employees can do their work faster and can go through less steps to implement a simple thing, and kind of how to ease this and how to increase the reduce the load times, and that kind of activities is kind of what we do internally. That's what we spend our time on during meetings. Those are the initiatives we're trying to work on a monthly basis, like sometimes twice a month. So with that in mind, we kind of come up with a specific list. Some of those we work kind of behind the scenes and just report with the progress. Some of them we say, hey, John, for example, those are some things that we've been reminiscing internally on, and we really want to kind of build them for you. Do you have something in particular over the next month or two? Can we work on this? Should we kind of split them in separate iterations over the next few months and so on? So that's pretty much how it goes. The reason why customers come to DevriX is that we do specialize in certain areas where most WordPress agencies don't really have expertise on. One of those verticals is software as a service. We have built 7 high-scale software as a service applications on top of WordPress, most of them using WordPress multi-site. Some of them, I think that one of them has at least 10,000 subsites in a single multi-site installation. So again, I mean, obviously WordPress.com has tens of millions installations, but most multi-sites out there they do have several dozens or like up to 100 or so, while some of our multi-sites have over 10,000 subsites. So that's kind of cool, and we've solved some problems for that type of customers. For multi-site itself, we've built some pretty great projects. One of them is for one of the largest automotive manufacturer companies in the world, based out of Germany. So we've done a franchising multi-site network for them and for their brands, and it's been pretty innovative. We had to again spend a lot of time building different things for them. So those are kind of two areas that we have specialized in. Additionally, again, we do have different high-scale websites. Like two of the platforms that we maintain right now generate over 20 million page views a month. So they deal with different challenges related to certain integrations, and our diverse expertise in different programming languages is often helpful for solving those problems. Like they say, okay, for example, one of our clients, they say we generate over 20 million page views a month. We do have some competitions or some events having peaks of 10,000 concurrent users live on the website. And we also track some information from Java platforms, Python platforms, and so on. How can we cache them? How can we scale them? That kind of more architectural decisions. Some are related to DevOps, most are related to backend development, some to front end. And we kind of try to combine our heads together and come up with the best applications for that kind of customers.
What about your team a little bit? I'm interested in how you've grown your team, and you've obviously had some success growing a pretty solid team. To be able to take your company where you have, be able to successfully pull off the projects that you must have done a pretty good job of building a pretty solid team. So you went from less than 10 years ago, freelancing and doing this on your own, now to a pretty solid team. I'm not sure exactly how many people, but how did you go about building this solid group around DevriX, and what do you attribute your success with that to?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be completely honest, hiring and nurturing new people is one of the areas that I've spent the most time on over the past probably year, and it's something that even if we've done well over the past several years, there's a lot for us to learn and a lot to kind of improve on our end. So over the past probably 3 years, I've done close to 1,000 interviews with different people. And that's like a few hundred interviews a year, right?
Wow.
And all of those interviews are combined from probably about 10,000 different applications received on our end, like through different channels, different job descriptions, the fact that we were listed in one of the top 125 remote companies on Forbes and Monster and Yahoo, I think. So this also contributed to a huge pile of applications coming our way and so on. So again, it's a really long cycle, and we've been spending a lot of time trying to vet different applicants and go through different CVs. So I really wish we had a better process for that, and it's definitely something that we are trying to work on and improve. I'm not sure whether we are going to come up with, I don't know, some sort of an IQ test. Well, it's definitely not going to be IQ test, but something to kind of vet people and their logical and thinking process, right? In addition to some test assignment and something else, so that it's easier to vet candidates and try to work with some. So that's definitely one of the things we're trying to work on right now. But regardless, on the other end, what we've done internally is again trying to be pretty active community-wise, and trying to attract talent around us. So most of the people we work with are working with us, especially on a local level, either through word of mouth or through different events or different happenings, or some common ground, such as the high school that I've graduated from. For example, I think we have 5 or 6 people, all of us graduated from the same high school. Like I said a bit earlier today, it's one of the top 3 ones in Bulgaria. So essentially, I know what's the curriculum there. I used to teach at this school for 3 or 4 years, and I kind of know what to expect from those people. I know their background much better than anyone else, simply because I've gone through the very same process. I know what are their strengths, I know what are their weaknesses, and I kind of know how to take these people and kind of take them to the next level. So again, we kind of implement different approaches. Of course, some of our applicants have just applied through the standard channels, just from our contact form or some job application. So that also happened, but it's really easy when they come and say, okay, look, I really want to work with you. Here's my GitHub profile. Here's my WordPress.org portfolio. I do have those 5 plugins, and I've been working on those projects. I've contributed to those projects. It's kind of a no-brainer. When you compare it to someone who says, hey, I've built 5 projects with WordPress, all of them using Kavada or Divi, because probably 90% of the applicants are actually doing this. So again, when you find a great talent, someone with really having a lot of experience in that particular area, with, again, open source contributions, with a lot of actual background in WordPress, we definitely try to partner up with them and kind of build a working relationship, as long, again, as we have an opening and it's cost effective, time effective, and everything like that. But whenever we find similar people applying with us, we really try to make it work, simply because probably 99% of the people are very far from this ideal spot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite a lot. I wondered that, if you had to tell someone like yourself, like some years ago, or maybe someone in a similar position today, that basically there's no way around it. If you want to build a great team, just like you said, you're going to end up spending most of your time working just on the team.
Yeah. Well, I do remember probably up until 3 years ago or so, Matt Mullenweg used to vet the final applicants for Automatic himself. So he was kind of doing the final interviews, right? So he had an HR team, he had some technical managers and so on doing the first years, the initial trial, the second trial, and so on. But essentially, he used to do the final round of interviews himself. And this was up until probably 2 or 3 years ago. And back then, Automatic was probably over 100 people already, right? They were probably about 150 or probably a bit more. So I was wondering, how is that even possible? He should have a lot more important things to do with his, day-to-day, being the CEO, or back then he was something like that for Automatic. So he should have been doing something more purposeful for Automatic. And at some point, you realize that, if you have a lot of slackers working for you, not really working on the right things, or, producing, say, shitty code quality or anything like that, so you're wasting effectively 40 hours a week for each person that's not contributing to the work, right? And if you try to take shortcuts, you're going to work with people who are really going to affect your bottom line on so many levels. They're going to demotivate the rest of the team. They're going to slow down your progress. They're going to eat up the time of your, say, senior management doing code reviews and so on and so on. It may really be devastating. And this is one of the reasons why hiring and nurturing talent and recruitment and internal processes has been kind of a focus of mine over the past year, because even a single mistake can pretty much waste 3 months of your company's time for just trying to figure out how to act with this applicant, or are they a good fit or not? Should you put them on a performance improvement plan? Like how to handle all of that, right? So yeah, again, like I said, now I understand why Matt used to do all of the final round of interviews before hiring someone for Automatic. It seems like a very crucial part of the process.
Yeah, that's amazing that you've grown to appreciate it like that. Do you ever get to write code anymore?
I do. I gotta admit, it's not that much anymore. But for example, this summer we had a lot of different holidays. Some of them were overlapping. People taking holidays at the same time. So I definitely had to do some hands-on. Quite a lot for several weeks in a row. That it's definitely not as active as it used to be before. But for example, all of our new customers, I do the entire onboarding myself. Like I do the initial code review of their platform. I do benchmarks, performance analysis, security code reviews, everything like that. Well, probably with some help for some of them, but I'm heavily vested in all of our new customers, and I want to do the onboarding properly for the team. So I want to know everything that could be known on a technical level about the project before handing it to the rest of the team. And since we do, again, long-term contracts, ongoing projects, enterprises, we don't really work with 50 new clients a month. So, I can't afford that time because it doesn't happen that often or that much. So yeah, I do code every now and then. I do onboard all new customers myself, and also my technical team is often reaching out for specific questions for technical architecture, implementing different solutions, and so on. Simply because, again, I do have a lot of expertise back from my enterprise days, and we do discuss these occasionally with the technical folks on my department.
That's amazing. And really, that's a lot of accomplishments there. And you've done a great job of building a successful agency that's doing really cool things. Great team, great work. That's amazing in itself. And hats off to you for doing such a great job with it. But really, it's even more amazing when you consider the fact that you've also been very generous with your time, giving back to the WordPress community in a lot of ways. So during all this time that you've been freelancing and running an agency, you've somehow found time to occasionally contribute to core, review all kinds of themes, organize events, and even more besides. Is that something that's really important to you to continue being involved? And do you plan on continuing to be involved to the same level in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have indeed spent a lot of time on that, and it was really crucial for my professional development as well, and for me understanding how the community thinks and what kind of different, say, groups of people are there in that ecosystem. So I have enjoyed doing that. I have done some things that I'm really proud of. Like again, I do have a bit over 30 patches in the WordPress core. And it's something that, like, for some of them, when I see them in a WordPress installation of a client, I say, hey, I remember when I added this patch, right? It's something that really makes me feel better. It's just a problem that I used to solve. Well, for example, there was a patch for, I worked together with a guy from Brazil. We were kind of, again, working for a few months on this patch. It was really complicated, but it was solving the performance of hierarchical post types. So whenever you have several thousand entries, slower hosting may load this for 15 seconds, 13 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, or even more for just 1,000 entries for your hierarchical post type. So we brought it down to, say, 2 seconds or something like that. So whenever I see a hierarchical post type right now with a lot of entries, I say, hey, this website could have been loading for 2 minutes, but now it's loading for 2 seconds. So that's really enjoyable. I gotta admit this. But yeah, for the most part, I think that there are a lot of different kind of activities that one could contribute to, which is why we try to pick kind of different things to invest in order to not fall behind on something. Like, could be WordPress core, could be, say, as you mentioned, team reviews or translations or support forums. Like, we're trying to reignite the process of launching free WordPress themes or free WordPress plugins. It's just a bit hard to kind of balance with all the teamwork we've got. We are trying to sponsor some WordCamps. Like we are about to sponsor one in a couple of months, and then I think in November. So again, we try to combine different activities in order to help out in different ways. And yeah, it helps a lot. It's not only, I mean, it feels great when you're helping, But for people who don't really appreciate just helping, you can also learn a lot from this and actually become even better, even if you're already proficient in a certain area.
What sort of things do you do in your spare time, Mario?
That's also a great question. So yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I spend a lot of time on those activities, to be honest, because they eat up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
So we on the weekends, probably 1 day a week or so, I'm playing World of Warcraft with my wife. We're also, just chilling at home sometimes, or so, like pretty much just a passive break, some rough vacation, with not too much physical activity, so to speak,
Yeah.
because I still try to be in an urban environment with a close proximity to wireless,
Ah,
because that's quite important, as you know.
yeah.
And yeah, I also do like hookah. We do have a lot of shisha bars here in Sofia, so that's also something that I'm also trying to combine during working hours. Other than that, I'm trying to write. Like, I do contribute to different blogs. I have some published work on Forbes, on Inc., Huffington Post, some of those business journals, so to speak. I spend a lot of time on Quora as well, trying to answer some questions that customers are often reaching out with, and I do want to have kind of a bookmarked answer for, I I know that this is a common problem, so just check this out. I already have the answer for you. So kind of trying to create an encyclopedia of my own answers for something that could be referred to. So those are probably the main things, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty cool. What's the community like, the WordPress community locally in Sofia?
Yeah, it's pretty active. It's really one of the youngest ones. I think that a few years ago, kind of the local gathering had over 100 people locally, which is kind of like the fifth most crowded in the world or something like that. I
It's
think probably
big.
for the 10-year gathering or so. So yeah, it's pretty active. I would say that for the most part, it isn't really comprised of a lot of tech people. I mean, tech as in, contributors or so. Most of them are already working in reputable organizations, or running startups. So I would say that it's more of kind of user-based, or small and business owners, or freelancers, or the kind of different diverse groups with diverse background. So again, I would say that a lot of people, I mean, we do have a lot of people with a lot of, again, technical expertise or just professional expertise in the area. Most of them are a bit too busy just working on their own projects, but there's also a vivid group of people with, again, different expertise and background that are participating on a regular basis.
I see. Looking ahead at your calendar, what are some events that you might be attending of any kind where someone might bump into you?
I'm not sure yet. I'm going to probably announce that if there's anything in particular on the roadmap. We are trying to work on a lot of different activities in-house with the team, and I'm also trying to allocate more time on the family at home, which is why I'm trying to run most things kind of virtually, which is, again, why I'm so happy to be here with you right now today. Simply because, again, I'm able to work on several different activities without all the commute and kind of trying to do only one thing at a time. So yeah, for everyone who wants to reach out, you can look me up on Twitter or Quora, or just check, devwp.eu or so, and just reach out. And this kind of lets me work with more people in a more limited amount of time. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Sure, sure. I imagine maybe we'll see you, or anybody attending might see you at the big Europe WordCamp next year, or maybe.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
Mhm.
We haven't, booked anything yet, so to speak, but that there's another 10 months or so until then. So
Yeah, it's in, if I remember right, Montenegro,
Serbia.
Serbia. Oh, it's in Serbia.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not terribly far for you, actually.
Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, great. How convenient. And
Absolutely.
you were a contributor to WordCamp Europe at some point in the past.
Yeah,
Uh,
for about a couple of years, I think.
yeah, yeah, that's a big event to get involved in. It must have been quite an undertaking.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's quite time consuming. It's certainly rewarding, but it's definitely probably 2 or 3 months of pretty much half time. Well, half time for the first month and probably full time for the next 2 months.
Wow.
So it definitely takes a lot of time. That's one of the reasons why we do we do have so many kind of people involved working for specific organizations and kind of being on paycheck, simply because it's not always feasible to be able to handle all of that if you're kind of self-funded,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's definitely worth noting, and that's probably one of the reasons why Automatic is taking such a big part of that, and also other organizations like Human Made in Europe, and Web Dev for 10 Up in the US, and yeah, I'm not going to discuss specific organizations, but you know what I'm saying, like just
Mhm.
larger companies trying to kind of support that, simply because it's a bit more feasible to assign people who are kind of full-time on a paycheck, being able to actually contribute that time without being worried about the rest of the work they need to do at night, or even paycheck for freelancers, and so on.
Right. Amazing. Well, as we wrap up, got just a couple final questions here. Do you have any good suggestions of guests that I might ask on the show in the future?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Um, so I know that you're in the Easy Digital Downloads camp, but I would suggest someone who's very active in the WooCommerce community. So I think that it would be interesting to kind of bounce some ideas off with them. The guy's name Vishal Kotari. He's running WooCommerce shop, building e-commerce extensions for WooCommerce. The best part is that the shop is actually running his digital downloads. So this is going to be a great topic for you to discuss.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, he's really running a great shop, and he has some outstanding extensions for booking appointments, for abandoned cards, for order delivery date, and some things
Mhm.
built many years ago, like being fairly innovative. And since he is from India, he isn't as well recognized and as often met in US WordCamps or some of the global WordCamps. So most people simply don't know him, even though he used to kind of write a lot of code for Symbian and kind of work with Nokia back in the day, and has a very interesting technical background from the very early days. So yeah, I would recommend him simply because, again, he has a very geeky background, and he's also working and building a very solid team, and is not as well recognized in the WordPress community.
No. Yeah, that sounds like a great person to have on the show, and I would love to talk with them. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yep.
Well, we're just about at our time here, so I want to give you an opportunity real quick to let people know, again, remind how they can get in touch with you, what people you're interested in talking to most, and any party words of wisdom for someone, maybe someone like yourself, just a few years behind, starting a small agency. Just quick point of wisdom for them.
Absolutely. So if you're just starting as a freelancer or as an agency in the WordPress space, try to specialize and try to get really the best at what you do. Could be, WordPress performance for multi-site, or could be, building software as a service solutions on top of WordPress. Could be BuddyPress or Easy Digital Downloads, or I don't know, Gravity Forms or LearnDash or something else. Like, trying to find a vertical on a technical level where you really excel at, like, be it design or user experience or programming or DevOps or something else. Just try to find your niche and try to work toward it. This would help you do two things. First off, become really proficient at what you do and really provide outstanding services. And second, be able to focus on the right target audience without kind of placing confusing messages for different groups of people. So those are really important things if you're trying to work as a freelancer and or building an agency. Alternatively, if you don't want to kind of specialize in a specific stack, which I definitely recommend, the second best thing you can do is work for a specific industry, like dentists or hospitals or restaurants or something else, and just target that specific audience. This is going to help you understand their business problems better. What are they dealing with? What are their pressing needs? And kind of be able to meet all those people at the right time. So that's kind of the second best thing you can do. As for people who want to reach out, I write about WordPress and business advice and marketing and management on devwp.eu, like developmentwordpress.eu. You can find me on Quora as Mario Peshev, and also on Twitter, no fear inc with underscores. No_fear_inc. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out, ping me, ask any questions, and I'd be happy to help. In fact, if you ask a very interesting question, I may actually write a blog post about it or record a video or something like that, if that's going to help someone else. I also do have a mentorship group that you can find in my blog, so you can sign up. I write 2 or 3 emails monthly, trying to give some advice for, again, running a freelance practice or WordPress agency. So don't hesitate to sign up. It's free, and we do have several dozen people signed up that we discuss some WordPress issues with.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Mario. That's some solid advice, and I hope people do reach out and check out your blog and your just excellent resources online. I want to thank you for all the awesome contributions you've made to WordPress and this community, and just being a model community member. And wish you all the best with DevriX and your future projects. So thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the invitation. You've gathered quite a lot of reputable WordPress folks. So definitely, everyone, check out the other videos and the other recordings. It's pure gold. You can find some rock solid advice from other people. I was just watching Dre today with some of his Navy history, so that's definitely some solid piece of advice. So yeah, thanks for having me, and yeah, good luck with all your future endeavors as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mario. Well, here we go. This has been episode 147 with Mario Peshev. Thanks for watching.